Hawkins, Erichawkins. We'll then have some comments from Macomb County Prosecutor Peter Lucido, Peterlucido. In between my comments and Commissioner Hawkins' comments, we'll be playing a video presentation regarding this incident. That video presentation will be emailed out after, so please make sure you scan the QR code so we have the direct email addresses that you want. We will be taking a brief question and answer period at the conclusion of Prosecutor Lucido's comments. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with some preliminary details. The incident date of this pursuit was on Thursday, June 18th, 2026. The starting location was for an attempted traffic stop near the streets of Fairfield and Georgiana. For some context, that's east of Shaner, north of 8 Mile in the city of Warren. The start time of this incident was approximately 1:58 a.m. The ending location was Shaner and 8 Mile Road. Arrested on the night of the incident were 4 juveniles ranging in age from 17 years old to 11 years old. A 5th juvenile was identified and arrested yesterday. There is no suspects outstanding. The driver in this incident is a 17-year-old Detroit resident, and the victim in this case is 48-year-old Remians Washington of Detroit. We are here today to provide an update and share information with the public regarding a police pursuit that resulted in the death of a 48-year-old victim. We understand and respect the public's right to know this information. Every member of this department fully acknowledges the gravity of this incident and the emotional toll it has taken on the family and on the community we serve. As you're all likely aware, last Thursday, 6/18/2026, in the morning, at approximately 1:58 a.m., the Warren Police Department engaged in a vehicle pursuit which started near Fairfield and Georgiana Streets. The pursuit concluded when the suspect crashed into a citizen's vehicle at 8 Mile and Shaner. 5 suspects fled the scene of the crash on foot, with officers quickly locating and arresting 4 of the suspects. The 5th juvenile suspect has since been located and was arrested earlier this week. Tragically, this traffic crash resulted in the death of 48-year-old Remians Washington. Again, our heartfelt condolences go out to Mr. Washington's family and friends. Every fully marked Warren patrol car is equipped with a forward-facing Axon dash camera. That dash camera captures numerous pieces of data and information, including when lights and sirens are activated on the vehicle. In addition, all uniformed patrol officers are also equipped with Axon Warren body cameras. You will see some of that footage today. Every vehicle pursuit at the Warren Police Department is monitored in real time by shift supervisors via radio, as well as via Axon. In addition, all police pursuits at the Warren Police Department undergo a meaningful review via the chain of command to ensure the pursuit aligns with all of our procedures and expectations. I will now discuss some of the investigative findings regarding the incident. Looking back at the week of the incident, it is important to understand a key piece of information that was in play that Thursday morning. In the 48 hours preceding the incident, specifically that Tuesday and Wednesday, our neighborhoods in southeast Warren were hit with a significant surge in vehicle-related crimes, with upwards of 17 reported thefts, break-ins, and attempted car thefts recorded in that window alone. The thefts were concentrated in southeast Warren, the same area where the suspects were spotted and subsequently fled from officers. On Thursday, June 18th, at approximately 1:58 a.m., 2 Warren officers in full uniform and a fully marked patrol car were on routine patrol in the area of 8 Mile and Shaner. While conducting this routine patrol, the officer's attention was drawn to a silver Dodge Ram traveling westbound on 8 Mile approaching Shaner. Officers noted that the Dodge had only one headlight illuminated, along with other equipment violations. As officers pulled behind the Dodge and attempted to close the distance, the Dodge made a sudden turn on a northbound Fairfield and disregarded a posted yield sign at Fairfield and Colleen. Officers activated their overhead emergency equipment to effect a traffic stop on the Dodge. The Dodge failed to stop and quickly accelerated away from officers. Officers then notified dispatch and other officers in the area of the suspects fleeing. During the pursuit, other officers noted that multiple occupants of the Dodge were wearing ski masks. The Dodge fled northbound through Warren. Officers made several attempts to position themselves for stop sticks deployment, but the suspects' repeated changes in direction made the deployment of stop sticks not possible. Ultimately, the Dodge fled southbound on Shaner, approaching 8 Mile Road. The victim was in his vehicle stopped at the red traffic signal for southbound Shaner at 8 Mile in the left lane. Investigators believe that Mr. Washington was complying with the law by moving to the right lane to yield to the emergency lights behind him. While doing so, he was struck by the fleeing Dodge, which had disregarded the red light at 8 Mile and Shaner. Upon observing the crash, officers immediately requested fire and EMS personnel to the scene. As I said earlier, 5 suspects fled the scene on foot, with 4 being quickly apprehended. Within 1 minute of the crash, officers established contact with Mr. Washington and provided support until the Detroit Fire Department completed the extrication. Mr. Washington was transported to a local hospital where he was later sadly pronounced deceased. The driver of the stolen Dodge, a 17-year-old Detroit resident, was one of the suspects arrested by officers. Officers would later confirm that the Dodge was in fact a freshly stolen vehicle out of the Grosse Pointe area. The Macomb County Prosecutor's Office reviewed this case and issued charges against those involved in this incident. Prosecutor Lucido will speak more about the charges shortly. The driver will be arraigned today at the 37th District Court at 1:30 p.m. and that will take place in Judge Beda's court. Again, that's at the 37th District Court across the street from the station. With that, we will now play a video presentation regarding the incident.
Taking up there 40 priority. Northbound on Thurville, Shaner. Silver Dodge Vision. Loaded down 3 times. Edwardville, Boy. 0390. East, westbound on Clover. There's someone up there. Whoever's at 696, we got top 6. Eastbound on Fraser. Whoever's at the entrance, turn around. Oh! Anyway, he's gonna run right into us. Over the grass. Now we're coming up to Hayes. No south. We are going southbound on Tekla. Up on Tekla. Still southbound. He's got the 4-way flashes on. He's flipped over. Come up to 8. Approaching 8. Uh-oh. 1050, 1050, 1050.
Bad 1050, roll fight.
Bad 1050, we're going to need at least 2 units. Vehicles still rolling. They're bailing.
To begin with, I want to extend my deepest condolences on behalf of every member of this department to the family and friends of Mr. Washington. This is a profound tragedy that no officer ever wants to see. The gravity of this loss is felt deeply by every single one of us, and we share in your grief. But I want to be clear about the nature of this incident. We are here today because a 17-year-old murdered Mr. Washington. We are here because of a deliberate, calculated chain of choices made by that individual. That 17-year-old chose to drive recklessly in our city. That 17-year-old chose to flee from the police. He chose to disregard the rules of the road. He chose to use a 4,000-pound plus vehicle as a weapon against innocent members of our community. And I thank Prosecutor Lucido, who you'll hear from shortly, and his staff for deciding to send a strong message for anyone deciding to disregard the lawful commands of police officers and blatantly and egregiously endanger the lives of others. The entire community is thankful to Prosecutor Lucido for holding those individuals accountable. However, I also understand that a tragedy of this magnitude also inevitably brings the broader topic of police pursuits to the forefront of our community's conversation. And as we all know, police pursuits are a polarizing topic. They are challenging because they are among the most high-risk actions that officers engage in. And like most major polarizing issues in this country, well-meaning and reasonable people often disagree on how they see it. Even within the field of law enforcement, accomplished law enforcement professionals locally, regionally, nationally, often disagree on the engagement principles with respect to police pursuits. For example, most departments allow pursuits, but to varying degrees. Some departments are more restrictive, while other departments allow more discretion by officers and supervisors. As recently as 2024, departments across the country, in California, Florida, Washington, D.C., Washington State, and others, loosened restrictions on police pursuits, allowing their officers to pursue for misdemeanor violations and other traffic violations in response to concerns about criminal activity. But we also saw departments in New York State, Michigan, Georgia, Ohio, and others who tightened restrictions out of concerns for the safety of uninvolved citizens. So the point here is that there is no consensus on what the threshold should be for the initiation and continuance of a pursuit. It varies from community to community. Often it varies among neighboring communities. But that difference in perspective does not mean that one community is right on this issue and another community is wrong. It just simply means that this is a complex issue with nuance, and it requires an understanding and appreciation for opposing perspectives. But regardless of where anyone stands on this issue, we all agree that the engagement of a pursuit requires the utmost discretion and reasonableness based on a whole host of factors, with the safety of the community, particularly uninvolved persons, being the paramount concern. In the Warren Police Department, we allow our officers to pursue under certain conditions. We have a policy that gives clear expectations of officers during these pursuits, a policy that has been vetted and approved by the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police accreditation process, a process that requires the examination of all policies, including our pursuit policy, to ensure that those policies are consistent with best practices. Every pursuit is monitored in real time by a supervisor. It's reviewed afterwards by administration to ensure that it is within compliance with policies and procedures. Violations of our policy are subject to discipline based on the totality of the circumstances. We are a learning organization, so every pursuit, whether within policy, outside of policy, or within the gray area, gives us an opportunity to make the necessary adjustments. It is important to note that our police pursuits are down roughly 45% over the most recent 3 years. And roughly 60% of those pursuits were terminated either by an officer or by a supervisor. This is a clear indicator that officers and supervisors are indeed using discretion and carefully balancing the benefits of pursuits versus the risks that are involved. Here are my observations about this incident involving this 17-year-old's murder of Mr. Washington. Our city had just experienced a rash of vehicle-related thefts during a relatively short period of time. Within 1 to 2 days, we had well over 15 such crimes committed in our neighborhoods. Most, if not all of those crimes were committed during the overnight hours. Around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning on the night that this happened, in one of the neighborhoods that was being victimized, officers attempted a lawful stop of a vehicle driven by a 17-year-old. We later learned, as Lieutenant Gajewski said, that that vehicle was reported as stolen. The occupants were wearing ski masks during a summer night. A pursuit ensued, and we all know the outcome now. We have tied those individuals to most, if not all, of the thefts that occurred during that period, and in all likelihood, several more that occurred prior to that period in our city and in neighboring jurisdictions. Our officers were doing what we expect. We expect our officers to address individuals who are terrorizing the neighborhoods of law-abiding residents in this community. And we remain steadfast in our duty to protect this community from those who are threatening its peace. We must hold individuals accountable when their choices break the law and they flee from authorities, and it leads to such devastating consequences. To those who would engage in this sort of criminal behavior in our city, know that we will use every available resource and all reasonable and lawful tactics to track you down and bring you to justice. You will not be allowed to commit crimes with impunity in the city of Warren. We're working very closely with the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office to ensure that there are real consequences for the harm that is being caused in our community. And finally, I want to address the men and women of the Warren Police Department who were on the front lines of this incident. Those officers were faced with a volatile, high-stakes situation where they had to make split-second decisions to protect this community from a group of individuals who showed a callous disregard for human life and property. Our officers did not create this tragedy. Despite the tragic outcome, I stand firm behind the efforts of the officers of the Warren Police Department. They operate in high-stakes environments, responding to the reckless and criminal choices of others. And their dedication remains the foundation of our ability to keep this community safe. And with that, I'll turn it over to Macomb County Prosecutor Peter Lucido for some additional comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. And I say this in a somber way. The respect I have for the law is the respect that was taught to me by my mother and father. They said to obey a police officer's lawful command. There's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't see on my desk cases where people have lost loved ones. From the beginning of the time when I took office, I noticed these fleeing eludings were very serious, but also the amount of fleeing eludings that we saw in the office is quite different from 40 years ago when I first started practicing law. I have never seen this many crimes where people just have disrespected and disregarded the law. Why even have a law on the books if you're not going to enforce it? As a former lawmaker in both the House and the Senate, I too knew laws had to be changed as times change. I too knew that we had to take very serious actions to protect the citizens, not only here in Warren, but the entire county and the entire state. As a former lawmaker, I initiated a pledge to the people of Macomb County that we will not reduce these charges. There's no reason to. When you disrespect and disobey a lawful command of an officer, you take matters into your own hands, and what you're left with is the results of this. Now, this is very unfortunate. A 17-year-old, two 15-year-olds, one 14-year-old and one 11-year-old are out there at this time of the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. I say to you, where's the supervision at? Where are the individuals that are supposed to take charge of these juveniles? And on top of it, just not going ahead and doing what they were doing, but also engaging in behavior that cost a man a life, cost a family a life. There's no way I can make justice for this family. This act was of his own volition and his own will. All he had to do was stop the vehicle, and we wouldn't be here today. But when you take matters into your own hands, you have a choice. That's a bullet coming at this man who died. That vehicle is a bullet. It's no different than felony firearm, where somebody goes ahead and decides to have a gun, has to take the charge with 2 years in prison. It's a mandatory. I suggest that the legislature act immediately on this. It passed out of the House back in October of 2025. It's sitting on the chairman's desk of the judiciary, and she should take a good look at that and at least have the discussion, because doing nothing is not an option. Find a solution, find an alternative, but telling me or my staff or the police departments that are protecting us that we're not going to enforce a law, then take it off the books, because otherwise we've wasted our time here today. So I don't know if you want me to at this point, Commissioner, to talk about the charges that are involved.
Sure.
Okay. In this case, we have a 17-year-old. We can't give the name until after the arraignment. It's the law. And as a result, that 17-year-old is charged with felony murder, life without parole. That 17-year-old is charged with second-degree murder, any term of years up to life. That 17-year-old is charged with fleeing, eluding, first degree, causing death, 15-year felony. In addition, leaving the scene of an accident causing death, 15-year. Receiving and concealing motor vehicle, 5-year. Burglary tools and possession with intent to steal a motor vehicle, another 5-year. And resisting and obstructing an officer, 2-year felony. These are all serious charges where this could land this young man behind bars at 17, charged as an adult for the rest of his life. But he took a life. In addition, there's 2 15-year-olds that are charged in this matter, 1 14-year-old and 1 11-year-old, with the following crimes: receiving and concealing motor vehicle, 5-year felony; burglary tools, possession with intent to steal, 5-year felony; and also resisting and obstructing, the 2-year. Those individuals are charged as juvenile because the nature and the circumstances of these charges so permit. If we had the obligation of doing something otherwise, we would have taken that liberty. I suggest that parents take heed to this kind of situation and know where your children are at that time of the night or the early morning. Don't turn this around and say that these are officers' faults. I won't allow it. There's laws that are set on the books. Either you want them enforced or you don't. And if you don't, tell your legislators to take it off the books. Thank you.
Well, I'll take some questions and answers.
You guys, Chief, alluded to engaging in pursuits under certain circumstances. Can you kind of briefly, succinctly walk us through what is the policy for Warren PD when it comes to pursuits? And in this case, maybe you can put me up on wrong, the crime had not yet been committed. But if you can just walk us through what exactly is Warren's policy?
So our policy is pretty consistent with what you would see any place else around the country, because as I stated before, most, if not all, departments allow pursuits, it's just to varying degrees. In fact, one of the most respected law enforcement professional organizations in the country, PERF, P-E-R-F, Police Executive Research Forum, the chairman or the CEO of that organization, while they are advocating for a more restrictive policy on police pursuits, they readily acknowledge that police pursuits are necessary. and that police pursuits are something that's common in departments across the country. And typically, what triggers a police pursuit is a violation of a motor vehicle violation. So, for example, officers are attempting to stop a vehicle for a motor vehicle violation. They have the appropriate lights and siren and insignia on the vehicles that indicate that they are police officers. And that individual either fails to stop or increases his or her speeds. That triggers the pursuit. So once that happens, then there are a number of factors that our officers are required to take into consideration. The time of day, the location of the pursuit, whether or not we know who this person is, whether there are some other means of capturing this person at a later time, weather conditions, whole host of conditions that in a split second, and that's what we have to keep in mind with our officers. These officers are making split-second decisions on whether or not to pursue a person that has committed a violation in their presence. And so once the pursuit has ensued, then there are a number of evolving conditions that the officers are expected to consider as well. Traffic conditions, whether or not they're in an area where there's likelihood to be a lot of pedestrian traffic. Again, how the weather conditions are, a whole host of conditions as this evolves. And so at any point in time, if it is deemed that the benefits of the risk associated with this pursuit outweigh the benefits of capture, then an officer or supervisor can terminate that pursuit. But again, these are rapidly evolving situations. I want to emphasize again something that I mentioned in my opening comments, and that is that over the last 3 years, our pursuits are actually down well over 40%. And of those pursuits that we actually engage in during that period of time, almost 60% of those pursuits have been terminated. So to answer your question even a little bit more, what this tells me, this is some objective evidence that these officers and these supervisors, they are taking into consideration a whole host of factors at the very outset and as these pursuits are evolving, because there may be this perception that once a pursuit starts, that we just chase these vehicles until the wheels fall off. Well, that's far from the case. Well over half of these pursuits that have been initiated are terminated either by an officer or a supervisor.
Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask you about that in regard to, if you broaden out, we've been here before, previous
Yeah.
incidents, and you talked about community by community, there is no consensus, but yet then you cite a decline in call-offs on chases. So would that be appropriate for us to infer that your department has taken a look at this issue, talked to other communities, and decided to maybe back off somewhat on the policy of pursuits, or are we to infer nothing from the fact that statistics are down? I'm interested if you can tell us more about the philosophy, if there is one, behind the change in the stats you referenced.
So what it tells me when I see stats like that is that our officers are indeed assessing the situation in real time and using the appropriate discretion when necessary. And I guess another way of looking at this, if we see statistics that show that that we engage in pursuits and hardly any of those pursuits are ever terminated, so we've got a 99 or 98% of those pursuits continue until whatever happens. It could be taken a number of different ways. That could mean that the conditions were okay to continue, or it could mean that there was perhaps not using the type of discretion that we would expect from our officers. So that could be taken a couple of different ways. But when I see a statistic that shows that terminations of pursuits are well over half, and that termination rate has been increasing over the last few years, what that means is that our officers are actually assessing the situation. We said in our open comments, we're learning more every single pursuit. We're learning is there something more we could have done, even if a pursuit was within policy, technically within policy. There may have been opportunities for us to terminate that pursuit and find some other ways of capturing these individuals. And so, what what I suppose is happening with this, the underlying theme with some of these, with the statistics showing what they're showing, is that we really are assessing what's happening during these pursuits. We're utilizing other means of capturing these individuals that perhaps 4 or 5 years ago we didn't use. 4 or 5 years ago, the pursuits may have still been in policy, and they may still been totally okay. But as we've assessed this over the years, we started to see that yes, this is within policy, but there's a better way we can do it. Policy alone does not dictate whether or not we engage in the pursuit or continue a pursuit. Policy just gives us a guide, and we're using that as a guide, and we're using past experience. We're using what we've learned from other agencies, both within Michigan and outside of Michigan, as to what are some at least effective ways of taking these individuals into custody, and perhaps some more effective ways of doing this. And so I see this as a positive. I see it as we're still keeping this community safe. We're still complying with the mandate that we have in our community. And our community does not want individuals coming into our community and committing crimes with impunity.
Forgive my interruption, but what I'm after is if